welcome to Hashtag General, the show where eventually at some time I will come up with better jokes for an intro than the one I just used. Joining me as always is the always co-host or host, Chris Akamura. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good, Logan. How's it going?
Pretty good. We'll talk more about your big news here in a second, but before we dive into that, what have you been up to besides the thing we're going to talk about next as a topic? What have you been playing and
Um,
watching?
so obviously Falcon Winter Soldier, which we're gonna talk about in a bit. But I did want to talk about two things. I'm watching Mighty Ducks as
Yes,
well as Winter Soldiers.
thought about putting that as a topic and probably should have put it as a topic because I too have been watching Mighty Ducks.
I
Because
like it.
yeah, I think my biggest thing has been I sometimes feel like the episodes could be shorter. Um, Hold on, I'm having to hide alerts because apparently people decided now is the perfect time to text me. I feel like it's kind of succumbing to the problem that I think Mandalorian successfully avoided, where it feels like they could have trimmed it down to be closer to the like 22-minute count, where they have a couple episodes that are like 40 minutes, and like these could have probably been divided into two parts.
Yeah, I think I think the first episode was really good and solid,
Hmm.
and the second one dragged a little.
Yeah.
Just like spoilers, the first episode I think was probably the best you could do with what they were like. Okay, so I think I recalibrated because the first episode I went into, I think, with the wrong expectation because they had put out a picture. So I think we've talked about it in the past where I grew up with the Mighty Ducks. I love those films. Those films mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
So for the press stuff, they put out this picture of Gordon Bombay, so Emilio Estevez, with all of these kids, with the kids, the older kids, meaning the original Mighty Ducks, but like now they're old. And they're in the Mighty Duck jersey, and they're on this ice, whatever. And one of the promo pictures is Bombay with the older versions of the kids that he from the original movies. So for me, I saw that and I freaked out, and I was like, "Oh my God, the kids are coming back," or like whatever it is. And I had in my head of like this is going to be like Cobra Kai, but Mighty
Uh
Ducks, right? That's what I had in my head. Obviously, it's not that, and I should have known it wasn't that. But the for some reason I got that stuck in my head. So the first episode when I first watched it was like pretty disappointing. Then I watched it again with my dad, understanding the expectation. I was like, wow, this is a lot better than I thought it was originally. Then I watched
yeah,
the
because I
second
didn't have
episode. Oh,
I'd
two.
seen some of that marketing material and I figured there would be some like tie-in where they'd bring in some of the old characters, but at the same time I wasn't expecting like a Cobra Kai. Like, and so I didn't have that
Right.
expectation, so I of course I loved the first episode.
Yeah. So again, I think that's a my bad on the miscalibration. Um, but yeah, I think that first episode's great. And then the second episode, I think it dragged just because it's like I understand what they're trying to do with the cringe with the mom stuff, but I think they I don't need to see three different scenes of her being bad at being a coach.
Right.
Um,
Like
I
they
think
could have trimmed down like the second episode could have been like a standard like 22-24 minute
yeah,
piece. I do
yeah,
like the message they're trying to put across, which is like this should be fun for the kids playing.
yeah.
Uh,
But also at the
so
same time, like the hard work and the losing is part of the fun, or the hard work and like being able to succeed and get better is like part of the fun too, right? So
yeah,
you can't just like designate yourself of like, oh, we're just
yeah,
gonna
just
lose.
getting on the ice isn't fun. Like you still have to have a shot and practice and be ready to play.
Right,
Um,
100%.
so no, I'm enjoying it, and yeah, other than my bit where I'm just like, okay, I think they could have done some tighter editing. Like, I think this has been a really It's a very good like it is has a lot of modern sensibility to it, but it still has the same spirit that was found in the Mighty Ducks
Yeah,
movies. So, which is, I guess, good because evidently the writer from the movies is also the guy show running the series. So that means, which probably is one of the reasons why that spirit is still alive.
yeah.
Because and I also do like the fact
Also,
that the Mighty Ducks have become the Hawks essentially.
yeah, I love that. Also, I love two things about Bombay. I love that he just eats everything like some kind of gluttonous mass.
My God,
Um,
I too wish I could just go eat a bunch of cake whenever.
yeah.
I'm somewhat jealous of his cake.
So I love that, and then I also love the scene of him trying to take a nap was for some reason it just got me. Um, I was laughing so hard with him just trying to take a nap, and they just keep barging into the room.
It's like, they keep trying to pull me in. I can't go in. And then, of course, like we see him skate again for the first time in a while. It's just like
Yeah,
clearly,
all that stuff is just like the nostalgia trip that I wanted from this show.
yeah. No, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah,
Uh,
so
I
that's what I've been watching. But I've been playing, and I told you I wanted to put this
but
on
figured we
the
would talk about it here. Yeah, Wild
yeah, I
Rift. How
figured
is that?
yeah, Wild Rift. Really, really good. Like surprisingly good. Uh like better than I ever could have thought it was going to be good. Um and like it's a kind of thing where it's like I'm not a mobile MOBA player. I don't I don't like playing MOBAs on my phone. It's something that I try to get into with Valor with the I forget what it's called. Something Valor. It's the other game
Oh
that's
yeah, I don't remember what it's called either, but I know what you're talking about.
it's the
Um,
other like MOBA in this space, in the mobile MOBA space that's like really popular. But anyway, that's like I've tried that before, and it's like it just doesn't hit me in the way that it never caught me. It felt clunky. Wild Rift feels super, and again, part of it could be that it's just the game that I've been playing for the past decade, and
it's
put
League of Legends, but basically they looked at how to adapt it to mobile rather than shoehorn it into mobile.
yeah. So like my experience with it, is obviously going to carry over better here than it would anywhere else, right? Um,
Yeah,
so, maybe it was partially that. So, but that said, I think that it's incredibly smooth. It plays very, very well. And yeah, it's to me one of the best executed sort of, I don't want to say ports, but it's one of the best executed experiences that I've seen on mobile in this space, which is really fascinating to see. So
well, I mean, how much of this is Riot's just because I feel like you said something similar with Valorant at launch, where yeah, it had to get tweaked and changed as people played it, and they had to adjust because that's just how it is with every game. That especially falls into like the more game as a service type variant, but that it
yeah,
was just really solid on launch.
yeah, I think there's a certain amount of that maybe. I think there's uh to a certain extent an amount of Riot just being really good at their jobs. Um, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said for well, okay, so the US is one of the last places that it is coming out. Like it has been out for at least a couple months in other places.
Yeah,
So we're one of the last places to launch. So they've probably done quite a bit of tweaking. Um, that that we're not 100% privy to. But yeah, I think from what I've played, it's so smooth. It's great. I can't speak to its uh I can't speak its praises enough of how I feel about
Do you
what
think
they've been
that
able
it
to do.
came last to the States because we're not a big mobile gaming
No, I think
space,
it's
or because they thought, or it was they wanted to get it polished and hope they could push and be bigger in the United States?
I think it's the second one because I think it's a mix of both. I think it's yes, we're not a huge mobile MOBA market. And so when you come into us, you need to be perfect in order to grab us. If you don't have time, we don't have wiggle room, right? If
Yeah,
you try to launch in the US. So you need to come out strong and you need to come out with the right attitude. And if you don't, then you're kind of dead on arrival, right?
yeah, but
So that's where I think we're at there.
no, it's good to hear. I remember when they first showed it off. Like my thing is, every time I've seen MOBA on mobile, it's always I think been a question of whether or not the gameplay is, as you would put it, smooth rather than you know mobile.
Yeah,
Like when I think mobile game, my first thought isn't, oh, I can play a game that can be based off of quick reflex or fast play, because they often are a internet connection can be an issue, but also at the same time, so many games that I see played on mobile tend to be like puzzle games. Then again, that seems
yeah,
to be where American mobile gaming has kind of been stuck.
yeah. So, you know, I think it's great. I've been playing it like crazy, and it's just a good experience. So very excited to see what they're able to do going forward. It feels done. It feels extremely polished, but again, like most games and services, like always adjustments to be made and things to fix and things to add, and so we'll see where it goes in like the next couple of months. Now that it's launched in the U.S., like I would assume they'd start to push real hard.
Probably.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I've been I've been on a Pixar kick, which of
Ooh,
course is not a bad thing. Like I saw a Reddit thread where they were talking about, God, I'm gonna mess up his last name, but it's like Anton, whatever. The basically the antagonist, not the chef, but the critic within
yeah,
Ratatouille is like their argument was he's one of the best villains in a Pixar film,
yeah.
if not film. And that put me on a weird kick where I watched Ratatouille, which is one of those Pixar films I love, but it never seemed to be
I love that
as
movie.
readily accessible or available, because it was a great movie, but it seemed like every like streaming service prior to Disney Plus would be grabbing like Toy Story or Car.
Yeah,
Like they were
fair.
going for like the big name ones, because even though Ratatouille was a huge success, it just, I don't want to say it didn't have sticking power, but it's just like Pixar has some other more, I guess, kid friendly brands that I think like a Netflix, if they're wanting to build out their portfolio of animation that will play well with parents for kids, like they're going to grab Toy Story. They're not necessarily going to be screaming for Ratatouille.
Right.
So I watched it again for the first time in a long time, and that just threw me on a Pixar kick where I rewatched Incredibles 2, which, by the way, watching it back to back, Incredibles to Incredibles 2, the quality in animation is like shocking how much Pixar like
The
Incredibles is
the
good, but
quality,
it's shocking how much they still were able to improve.
yeah. Also shocking how much better Incredibles 1 is as well.
Yeah.
Because
Like
I
I
remember
did
watching
not
Incredibles 2 and being like, ooh, this is really good. Because I hadn't seen Incredibles 1 in a long time. And then I watched Incredibles 1 uh, maybe like a couple months ago. And then we watched Incredibles 2 right afterwards. And so, yeah, I noticed the animation stuff right away. But then the thing you notice even more than that is like wow, this movie is not as good.
yeah, Incredibles is incredibly tight. Like there isn't anything in Incredibles that doesn't exist for a reason,
Yeah,
which is very efficient storytelling. And
yeah,
Incredibles 2
100%.
doesn't feel as well constructed. I think watching
Yeah,
it back to back, enjoyed Incredibles 2 more watching it back to back than I did just watching it as a standalone. Because I remember walking away from the theater, because that was the last time I actually saw Incredibles 2 was in theaters, and thinking, man, this film just doesn't feel necessary. And I don't think I
I do
walked
like the
away.
idea of the story.
Yeah, I like the idea from the story, and I feel like I liked it more watching it as a back to back, because this one is almost like the flip where, okay, now we're gonna see a bit more of Helen and her story and her heroics. But it again, it feels like some of like the tightness in narrative and some of like their ideas for like the setting of the world kind of got lost going from 1 to 2. Because Incredibles, the first one, is very, very well focused within the 1960s Bond aesthetic, from
Yeah.
the music to the design to the set pieces, everything like feels like it was lifted from Bond. And then watching Incredibles 2, it felt like they kind of left this 1950s, 1960s future tech space and kind of tried to make it a little more contemporary, and I don't think that helped.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So I did that. I also watched Finding Nemo for the first time in probably a decade. It was interesting to just go back and be like, "Oh yeah, I have access to all of these movies now. I'm going to just go sit down and just watch them." So I basically rewatched like those mid 2000 picks, like from basically Finding Nemo. I didn't watch Wally only because I didn't feel like I basically was like, I don't want to watch science fiction. I was like not in a weird, bizarrely for me, I wasn't like in a mood to watch some science fiction. I wanted to watch something else. But
What?
how good, I know,
Are you
right?
Logan?
I apparently was kidnapped and replaced with a life body double. Real life decoy or life model decoy. I eventually got to it, so clearly I was a bad replacement.
An LMD.
An LMD. I'm an LMD of Logan. No, but it's shock how good Pixar was from about 2003 to 2009. It was like Pixar just was on fire. Excuse me. Yeah,
Bless you.
so it's one of those things to go back and watch those movies and go, man, it's Pixar is still good. Like I think Soul and Inside Out were fantastic, but it just feels like those are the outlier to Pixar now rather than the norm for Pixar. Where it's like something story wise in Pixar, like kind of, I don't want to say it fell apart, but it just felt like something, like the magic somehow got lost for a little bit
Well,
when they
so
went into
here,
the sequel zone.
I don't even think it's a sequel zone. So here, look, I'm looking up the list right now. There's a clear point where, oh, let me see. Uh, this is good podcasting.
Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. I mean, what is it?
Uh,
It's
well, like, so there's a clear point. Here we go. List of Pixar films. So to me, it comes right around The Good Dinosaur.
yeah, Good Dinosaur especially.
Because think about it, you go the first like 10 films. You go Toy Story, Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Wally, Up, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, which is already kind of iffy, but
Yeah,
it's not terrible. Brave, which is good. Monsters University, which personally I like, and I might like even a little bit more than Monsters Inc.
I need to rewatch that one.
I know that's blasphemous.
I need to rewatch it, but I remember it felt where I would describe Incredibles 2 as not feeling like it was necessary. I feel like Monsters University was incredibly in that vein where I was like not convinced that that film needed to happen.
So I'm a sucker for like the college like setting. Like anything in a college setting, I'm like usually in.
Okay.
Uh, so okay, so Monsters University. Okay, so if you want to put that as iffy, okay, it kind of okay. Then Inside Out,
Really good.
then Good Dinosaur, which is I don't think it's bad, but it's definitely on
It's
the lower end.
it's one of those things where Pixar's quality is so good. Like their films are so good that when they have something that is still good but not great,
Yeah,
it feels like it is a lesser film. When the truth
yeah,
is, like if you put that up against most films from say DreamWorks or anything like that, it's still better.
yeah. So like you have Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, and Cars 3 all in a row, and like
Yeah.
so that's the first time really where I'm looking at this where I go, oh, that's like consecutive films that are not great.
Yeah.
Uh, then you have Coco, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Onward, and Soul. So I love Onward. I think Onward's really good. Uh, but when you look at these, like out of the 23 films here, there's only like maybe four where I'm like, yeah, these are pretty bad,
Yeah.
which
I
is
mean,
insane to me.
it's impressive, honestly. Um, I mean, because that's the thing. Even when Pixar, like I said, even when Pixar stumbles, it's still like they're not, bad. At worst, they are okay.
Yeah,
Like, and that's a whole lot better than Boss Baby, Storks, and all its sequels.
Boss Baby. Oh my goodness, Boss Baby.
Uh, which again, side note, stuff like that. Reason why I complain about Con Baby in Raya. It's just like, please, just no.
Oh, so we did see Raya. I
Oh,
like
you
Raya
did?
a lot. Yeah.
It's good, right?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I went in with like pretty high expectations and it was better than I thought it was gonna be.
Get
Um,
rid of Con Baby, and I would have sat there and been like, "This is one of the best films Disney's put out."
I
I
liked it. I think they went a little too ham with
They
it.
went a little too ham with Con Baby. Like that's my biggest problem. Is like
I would have liked it more if it was like the monkeys doing more of that stuff,
exactly.
taking care
It,
of the babies.
yeah, it didn't need to be this 2-year-old who can't speak but somehow is able to pull off elaborate cons and is in charge of like monkey like
I
theft
would have even liked it.
squad.
It would have even made more sense to me if the monkeys were the main con artist and
Yeah.
teaching her how to. It would make more sense, but she was in charge, which seemed like a weird.
Yeah, like they I think they misplayed that. That's like my one complaint about Riot is Con Baby could have been handled way better. They went for the gimmick quick laugh rather than the one that makes sense,
Yeah,
especially given
I mean,
like the
I don't blame them. I think it's still solid, but yeah, I totally agree with you. I see where you're coming from.
but yeah, like good film. Really good film.
Yep.
Huge Avatar vibes, which I think totally played up if you watch the Honest trailer, they totally play into the fact that it has strong Avatar, Team Avatar
Yeah.
vibes.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, that was my kick was just watching a bunch of Pixar and then I went into a bizarre deep dive into Cities Skylines modding
Okay.
because I discovered that it's actually fairly easy to take modified assets and reskin them for City Skylines as long as they're not helicopter. Basically, if it has like minimal moving parts, it's actually pretty easy to reskin. So like helicopters and trains, not easy. Cars, very easy. So I was in this weird kick of where I was playing around with like how can I modify assets in the game because there are some amazing, well done, well done, realistic vehicles, trains, build like some of the things people do modding that game are crazy. But it also, I think the more I looked at it and the more like the rumor mill has played, the more it sounds like I think because Paradox is doing their big convention in May, and typically this is around the time of year they'd announce a new expansion pack for City Skylines. I think they're getting ready to launch the City Skylines 2. So at least
Could
that's the
be. It's been a
vibe
long
I'm
time.
getting. I mean, it's been over 5 years, and
Yeah,
there are
it's a long
definitely
time.
there like Unity, especially when they made that game, was definitely not the right engine for the job. I think this was also pre. I think their development on it predates Unreal, enabling you to like work in it for free, and you only have to pay after like a certain amount in sales. Where Unity is like was like confirmed free, because they, if you go into the history of City Skylines, they didn't think they would be a big success. What
Yeah,
happened was they started development on it, and then Maxis at EA announces the relaunch of SimCity, and they were mid development of City Skylines, and they were just like, well, we're in too deep now. We can't like change, so we're gonna just keep going and try to see if we can't be, better in our own way. Because there have been some city competitors out there that had never done as well, but they existed. So they're like, oh, maybe we can be in that niche. And then
right.
SimCity just bombed, to where City Skyline became the city building game. But it has engine issues. The UI is clunky. There's a lot of like, I think, interface and quality of life updates that could definitely be taken over from when they do a new game. Like, it also has an issue with scale where the building sizes become less realistic the bigger the building becomes, to where a skyscraper takes up the same amount of space as a house,
Yeah,
which not really realistic. There's a lot of, and their model work when they launched was not great. I think they didn't realize how much the community was going to be really focused on realism. And if you look at some of their expansions, there are some amazing, well done, incredibly detailed assets that would make
yes.
more sense in a game that had like more realistic modeling than in the game that got launched. So I have a feeling some of those assets were getting made while in like they were in early development for a sequel with the hope that they could just be used again, which from a budget standpoint makes a ton of sense. So I'm half expecting there to be an announcement. So of course I'm doing this deep dive into like playing around with modding and then going, how much of this is me goofing off, and then in literally 2 months realizing, oh, there's gonna be a new game coming out this year.
Yeah.
It's like, of course that's what's gonna happen. So to all City Skylines fans out there, you're welcome. That's of course the reason why it happened, was because I decided to play around with modding, and that took up way too much of my time last weekend. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. You, however, had some pretty interesting news that you were now able to talk about publicly. So, James, why do you go ahead and go to the next slide? How's the new job, Chris?
That's good. It's great. Yeah, it's a weird thing that uh I made a mistake. Like I teased it maybe like when I signed and I made it and I started working. I teased it and I made an announcement like, hey, it's coming soon. I didn't fully understand like when the timing of us being able to go public with it was going to be.
Yeah,
So
because I remember
essentially,
thinking that we were going to be able to talk about it last broadcast.
yeah, we so essentially I have someone else that came on board with me. Her name is Tina. She was with G2, and then she was at G2, then she went to T1, and now she's at Panda. Um, and so her first day was going to be April 1st. And it just made more sense for us to hold the announcement until we announced the both of us.
Yeah,
Um, and it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it did give me a certain amount of leeway to be able to say like, okay, cool, let me prep everything and like maybe build up uh let me build up these systems and these kind of processes
Well, I
while
know
she's
I
not
was going through their Twitter feed and I went, oh, here's a Chris post. Here's a Chris post.
here.
Just like knowing how you've operated in the past, I was just like, oh, I can recognize the post on my Chris.
Yeah. Um, Obviously that's bad because I don't want that. I'd rather have like it be indistinguishable. But I mean, it was the thing where we needed to change sort of the processes and the way that we were executing some things. Um, so taking care of all that, super important. And so yeah, um, she joined on. This has been her first like 3 or 4 days, and so she's jumping on now. But I've been here almost a month now. Um, and so yeah, it's a good fit. It took a good 6 to 7 months of talking to get a deal done.
Hey, I
Um,
mean, you love fighting games and that is their space. So good fit all around.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they also run Pokemon, which is something that I'm into, and card games, which is again something that I'm into.
Yeah, I remember you
Um,
telling me more about Panda, and I was just like, oh, this is like your thing. Like, oh, this
yeah,
is like perfect for you.
yeah. It's also a company that I've been talking to for years at this point. I had talked to them about a community management position in like 2017, I want to say. It wasn't a good fit then, for a lot of different reasons. But I think that this time, talking to them and being able to sit down with them, and I have a good amount of friends in the company already. And so talking with them about how they felt about it and sort of what they were looking for, everything just sort of fit and locked in place. I was like, yeah, this makes sense to happen. And so yeah, we did, and we're good.
Yeah. No, it's congrats, of course, on the job, and I'm, you know, looking forward to hearing more about it. And I'm glad you found like it's one of those cases where your interests and the company just align perfectly to where like when you told me more about it again, like I already said, it was like, oh, this is perfect. So congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's move on because of course you and I have spent 40 minutes talking about nothing on the topic list.
It's a shorter topic list, to be completely fair.
Well, it got a little longer because I realized this morning I was like, oh, I forgot to add like 14 things that we can at least just knock out of the park real quick. First off, Star Wars. Recently we got a cast announcement for Kenobi. Bunch of names we expected. Some like I'm happy that we're getting the same actors for Owen and Beru. And then I think the other real big thing is production is starting later this month. So Kenobi is going full steam ahead. Interesting to see how that one plays out. Did you look into the casting announcement at all?
Uh, yeah, a little bit. I mean, the one of note to me was like, yeah, okay, Hayden Christensen, which we knew already.
We already knew
But
that
just
one.
yeah, but just seeing it was something that was really cool.
Yeah, because I don't think Beru
Um,
had been confirmed to be the same actress. I think that was the first confirmation we had of that. We knew Joel Egerton had been in talks, at least, if not signed, to reprise Uncle Owen. But you also have the actress who played the friend from Queen's Gambit
yeah,
is playing an unknown role, and then Kumail Nanjiani, which is just like it's like is I can see this going either way because he got super like jacked up for Marvel to where he could either be comic relief or he could be like like it could go multiple ways with him now. But yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting once we can see more for this series what it's going to be like. Again, confirmed limited series, so I think it's what 4 or 6 episodes, and that's it. But Yeah, not much more there unless you have more to add.
No, I mean, again, I'm just excited. I just want to see more. I want them to film it, and I want it to go off without a hitch.
All right, next thing Star Wars related. Again, Star Wars we're gonna just burn through quickly until next month. Bad Batch trailer landed the next day. I want to hear your thoughts on that one because I know you and I both have said Bad Batch isn't necessarily the show we would have wanted when it got announced. And I wanted to know what you
Yeah,
thought after seeing the trailer.
it's not something that I wanted, but I'm not mad about it. It's super cool looking. I love that they're bringing Fennec Shan into sort of more of a lead role is the wrong word, but I'm glad that they're bringing her uh, deeper into the fold here and giving her some backstory. So I like it. I'm
Yeah,
into it.
no, watching the trailer because I think the big thing is the Bad Batch episodes of Clone Wars aren't necessarily like if because I created at one point that list of essential Clone Wars episodes, and I don't think they've ever given us like chronological dates yet.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure I would have thrown Bad Batch in there until now, where it's like, okay, well, Bad Batch is the spinoff, so then it kind of becomes essential again. Watching the trailer though, I was just like, no, I'm all in on the idea being presented here. Like it just yeah, it's not the story I asked for, but it's definitely a story that I'm interested in the more they reveal about it. So watching that trailer got me pumped, honestly. So
yeah.
May 4th. Apparently it's like a double length episode or something like that, or 90 close to like a 90-minute launch.
I'm into
So
it.
yeah, I'm totally into that. May the 4th, because you got to take advantage of that marketing. So yeah, of course, as always, hashtag General will be your home for too much Star Wars content all the time. Starting next month. Moving on to movies. What did you think of the Space Jam trailer?
Okay, I'm in.
You're in?
I'm in. And it
Okay.
comes down to a thing where uh I know people got mad at like the Ready Player One vibes. Um but
I honestly, if they get Gandalf playing basketball, I'm going to be both irritated and excited, depending on if it's Lego Gandalf or Ian McKellen.
so yeah, the thing is, like, I know people were mad about the Ready Player One stuff. It looks like they're just watching, and it's still the basketball game is still between whatever this Goon Squad is
Mm-hmm.
and the Tunes, which is great. That's what I want. Also, the all of the Goon Squad, there's already pictures of which NBA players they are. Um, and show them side by side, and you can clearly see like you know Anthony Davis's face or Diana Taurasi or Clay Thompson or Dame, whoever it is, right? Like you can see their faces in these characters, which is really cool. But yeah, like I think that having having like all these other characters come in, I think it's just like added value, and it's really cool to see them kind of like in the crowd. So when you look at the crowd from Space Jam One, do you know this behind the scenes tidbit by the way about the crowd?
No.
So they didn't have the processing power to process the entire crowd being live. So a lot of them are looped still images repeated over and over.
That does not surprise me. That reminds me of to go really firm film nerd. There's a shot in Citizen Kane where in order to do a
Oh,
sequence to make it
it's
look
amazing.
realistic, they did like a cutout, and all of the movement is them just actually like moving a light back and forth.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's just like the moment it's pointed out to you, you look at it and you're like, oh crap, that like the moment you're told what
Yeah,
it is, you're like, oh, I totally see that. But until then, you would have been like, no, that's a crowd shot.
yeah. So the thing that you'll notice if you watch the original Space Jam is you can see like the same character like 60 times in almost every shot in the crowd. Like it's clearly obvious that like these are all just copies of each other, but you don't pay attention to it because it's in the crowd.
Yeah.
And so, but like given the technology of today and given the technology of then, like if they could have did today what they did back, like if you made Space Jam again, you would have all these characters in there
Yeah. Like
anyway
I could
in the
see
crowd.
them trying to like it would not shock me at all back then if they would have tried to pull off a thing where they would have even been like, "Hey Disney, can we just sneak in a couple people, please?"
Yeah,
Like
so
just
look,
for the
I
sake of
think
it.
yeah, so I think that's great. I think that personally, I think LeBron James is a better actor than Michael Jordan is, and more kind of charismatic than Michael Jordan is.
Yeah,
Um,
Michael Jordan, to be kind of blunt about it, because I remember rewatching Space Jam. Again, it's been a long time since I rewatched it, but I remember watching it as an adult and going, "Man, his performance is wooden."
yeah, and like
As a
when you
kid, you don't
watch
care, but as an adult, you're like, "Ooh, this is not good."
yeah, I mean, and when you watch LeBron in Trainwreck, like he's actually really good in Trainwreck.
Yeah, like
Um,
my thing watching this trailer isn't like LeBron's acting or even some of this story. It just felt like it felt very close to like the type of trailer you get where you're like, oh, this is all of the good jokes.
yeah,
And but at the same time, I'm like, some of these jokes I don't feel like they're hitting, at least not me. So I'm just like, I went from being I'm all into I'm now concerned, and I'm just hoping that the trailer was bad to me, not necessarily that the film is bad. Because honestly, LeBron plays it a little cheesy, but I think that's with intent.
yeah. I think I like it a lot. I love the stuff like the Sam shoot the ball joke was really funny to me. That got me, and like it's such an obvious joke, right?
Yeah.
But like that's hilarious to me. The Lola Bunny D Wade homage was awesome. Um, and so like stuff like that, right, to me is such a like it's to me that kind of attention to detail is what's gonna make this movie for me, I think. Um,
Yeah, I think what it
yeah,
comes down to, like, again, this is for me, and I know this. I had a text chat with some friends. The more I think about it, and the more went back and rewatched the trailer, it's more that I think they jammed a little too much into the trailer. I think if they slimmed down some of the like stuff that they jammed in there and let some of the jokes play out a little longer, I think it would have been a stronger trailer. I think,
it's
and
fair.
I'm hoping that it's just like the
A bad
trailer
trailer.
is mediocre rather than the film, and that's going to be my hope until I see the movie, where I can judge it on its own. Because I really, really do want to enjoy this Space Jam movie.
Yeah.
Come on and slam, man.
Also, I really do like the remix music too. I did
Yeah,
like the theme.
come on and slam, and welcome to the jam. And I totally had a joke about that on Twitter for the post for today. But yeah, well, see, this is another instance of where we're gonna get it day and date theaters and HBO Max. When is this one out? Is it June? I don't remember actually.
Yeah, June 6th, I think. I want to say June 6th.
All right, well, we'll definitely talk about it.
Yeah.
Speaking of other things we will talk about, the Suicide Squad trailer, which I think ties in beautifully to the topic after that, but we'll
Yes.
get into it immediately after we talk about the trailer. This is the first DCEU film trailer I watched and went, holy shit, this looks amazing.
So I had it to me. This gives me the same vibes that I got from the original uh, Suicide Squad trailer. Remember that first Suicide Squad trailer was incredible too,
True.
and they messed that up. So I have no faith in them anymore. I again, you can have all of these great trailers, and
Yeah,
you
I
know
think for me,
whatever.
the difference between the Suicide Squad trailer we got for the first Suicide Squad, Will Smith, and this one is the last one was had like all of like the cool moments you would throw into a trailer with the music mix. This one I feel like they gave us a lot of the James Gunn moments where it felt like
Fair.
while watching it, like, oh, Warner backed the dump truck full of money up to his house, went, go have fun, hard R is okay. That is, I think, one of the reasons why I actually looked at it and went, oh, I'm actually really interested in this Suicide Squad, is because I don't think they are going to do to James Gunn what they did to David Ayer.
Yeah, again, Gunn is the only reason why I'm optimistic for the movie. Otherwise, I think it's like if it wasn't Gunn, I would think that this is just whatever another trailer.
Yeah.
Uh, so
But
you know
on top of
that's
that, not
that's
only
where
is,
we're at. So that's where we're at.
yeah, but
So
I
like,
think,
and I also think too that so clearly we've heard stories that the original Suicide Squad was recut and sort of retoned and filmed after the reception to the trailers. And so, that did create like a weird thing where the first half of the movie is pretty good, and the second half just has this weird, like, what is the rest of this movie? It just feels really disjointed from the rest of it. Uh, and so, yeah, I think like they do have a benefit here of like understanding the tone that they want to hit from the start.
yeah,
And Gunn's the perfect guy to do that.
exactly. Like the tone they want, and like they basically tried to recut the first Suicide Squad into Guardians of the Galaxy, and it failed miserably. So might as well get the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy, and then be like, oh hey, we know that you can be really raunchy. Go ahead and go for the R.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I will say, the first Suicide Squad, the first like half hour of that movie actually is pretty good. I've watched it again. The first like half hour is not bad. It's when they get onto the plane. From then
And
on,
it
it's
completely
absolute
falls
dog shit.
apart.
Yeah,
Completely falls apart. So here's hoping that this movie is the first chunk of Suicide Squad. But I think the other big thing is we get this trailer for Suicide Squad, and then the next week it is confirmed Warner Brothers canceled the two remaining DCEU films that were in development. One of them was the sequel to the Aquaman, and then another one was, I think, New Gods with so yeah, everyone who was sitting there going, see the Snyder cut, it's so great. Warner Brothers has no choice but to bring back the it's dead. It's dead. Suicide Squad is going to be the last bit of it. It's dead.
yeah,
Sorry, not sorry.
yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, it's just kind of how it is, and not shocking at all. Like it's not that I can't see Warner Brothers trying again, but I think, at least I hope, they learned from their mistake.
You would hope
But
so.
you'd hope so. But the DC expanded universe is dead. Long live whatever the hell comes next. Speaking of what comes next, Godzilla versus Kong. Did you watch it?
I did not yet.
Oh,
Did you?
I
How
did.
bad is it?
It's horrible.
Yeah, I haven't heard good things.
It's
Which is why
horrible.
I haven't. Which is why I haven't watched it.
But here's the thing I will say. This is the kind of movie that is horrible, but it also shouldn't be good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I
you're
was never
watching this for
expecting this to be good.
yeah. And that was my thing too. I did not go into watching this expecting a good movie. I went into it expecting a very cheesy CGI filled monster fight. And you know what? In that mark, it delivered. This is a movie where if you do want to watch it, I would highly recommend watch it with friends and crack jokes. Like, I'm the kind of person who's normally like, everyone should be quiet in the movie theater. This one, I would have been like the only way you can have an enjoyable movie theater experience with this is if people are cracking jokes.
It's like Fan Four
It's
Stick.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing is I would not recommend, like, would never put this on like a top 10 list. Wouldn't sit there and be like, oh, you have to go see this movie. But it's like, you know what? If you are like doing like a bad movie night, or you're wanting to go see a movie with friends where you kind of are just there to have a good time, not necessarily there for a good movie, just more the environment you can build with your friends, this movie is a good fit for that. So I enjoyed watching it, but then again, I watched it with friends while we were all on a Discord chat making fun of it while it played. Because yeah, it's a bad movie. It's a flat out bad movie, but it's fun if you do it the right way. And that would be my thing. Is if you do Godzilla versus Kong the right way, you can have fun with it. Because this is just pure unadulterated story plot, makes no sense. But hey, two monsters get to bash the crap out of each other, and that's what we're watching it for.
Fair.
It's not high cinema,
No,
but
it's Transformers,
yeah,
which is sad because I think the original Garth Edwards movie, I think is one of my favorite movies of all time.
the biggest problem that movie has, because there's this thing that I keep seeing people say online where the biggest problem with the Godzilla movies is the humans. Like no one cares about the humans. I'd say the biggest problem with the first Godzilla movie is that the interesting human character is killed
Dies
off in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If it was, Bryan Cranston from beginning to end, no one would have had that complaint about the first Godzilla movie. Because you were actually interested in his character.
Well, to me, it's almost a perfect Godzilla movie.
Yeah, it's just you get Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch playing kind of one being very wooden the entire time and the other kind of just there. Like that's where the human element fell apart, is you had two characters who weren't that interesting being your primary lens to see Godzilla.
Right.
Because I would put that Godzilla in a very different class of movie compared to Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Right.
Where in both instances, those two movies kind of threw away the idea that they needed to have a coherent story. And just went, people are here for the destruction.
Right.
Which I enjoyed from, again, on a shut off brain and enjoy stupid side of things. Got some joy from King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, but I would almost say Godzilla is, a good movie.
Fair.
I would actually go and say that about Godzilla. It wanted to do Godzilla right and treated it as if it is, a monster you fear because it lurks in the depths rather than the show, and it appears in this big set piece rather than the big set piece being everything for the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Like, have you seen the original Godzillas, like the '50s ones?
Not fully.
So
but I know that Godzilla, the Gareth Edwards ones, is more akin to those Godzilla movies than this idea of Godzilla that we have now.
Yeah. The thing that makes the older Godzilla movies so great, what made them iconic, was the thing of, it's not the monster itself, it's the legend of the monster.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mystique, it's the aura, it's what the monster does without being on screen. That is the sort of critical thing. So it's the little hints that you get. It's the little nods that you get. It's the myth of it, right? So like, that's why the thing that I do love about what they're doing with what Legendary's done with their monster stuff is they've done some great stuff with Monarch, where Monarch is this organization that has all this knowledge and has all this kind of myth and legend and tells these stories, and like the scenes where Monarch is explaining to someone something, and the music, they have the great music and like the ominous kind of tones, all that stuff I like fall in love with. And they did such a great job with that. My favorite scene in that whole movie is after Cranston dies, they take Quicksilver down into like the base of the ship, and it's the two Monarch scientists, and they basically explain, like, here's Godzilla, here's what this was, here's the situation, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. And
it kind of conveys this idea of this respect and awe and fear of Godzilla, and it feels like
It's so good. It conveys the tone of the entire movie perfectly. And it doesn't have anything. It has maybe a still photo of Godzilla in it.
Yeah, this is I think an instance of where as much as I enjoyed watching Godzilla. I would say that this is where they began to listen to the fan base rather than listen to like what is best for how to tell the story is
Yeah.
where I think this monster verse fell apart.
Yep. Oh, see, the scene that I'll compare it to is in John Wick, where uh, they have them t the pencil scene where he's just explaining, he's talking about John. The
I
whole
am
scene.
going to be
He's
totally honest. Still haven't seen John Wick, and why isn't it available for
what?
streaming? Like
Wait, you've
there have
never
been multiple
seen
times
John
I
Wick?
wanted to go and watch John Wick, and every time I go, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch John Wick. Like I'll check it now just in case.
You've
It's like
never
not
seen John Wick?
streaming. Yeah, I haven't seen John Wick.
Well, we
I
worked in
know.
a movie theater during the
I
peak John
know.
Wick.
I'm not saying I'm a good human being. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. Oh, it's finally it's on Peacock with ads. Ah, why?
Go watch John Wick.
I'd rather pay. In fact, that might be what I do. I might just rent it because I don't want to watch it with ads. Uh,
John Wick. John Wick's one of the greatest movie experiences you'll ever have. And
but
I'm not like exaggerating.
yeah, it's the world building is sorely lacking. Is I think the point we're making.
You know what does really good world building though? John Wick.
I guess I'll have to explore that movie and find out what you mean.
Yeah, the world building in John Wick is so good.
Um, yeah, I've heard nothing but actually good things about the world building in John Wick. It actually comes up way more often than you would even think, Chris. Like where I've run into just in the universe out there amongst in the world where John Wick is brought up as a great example of world building. Like I'm not even joking. I have seen that so many times, and I'm just like, okay, universe, I need to watch this movie. I get it. Why can't I stream it on any of the major streaming services except, of course, now Peacock with advertising? Because why? Why?
Because John Wick.
It's John Wick. But yeah, it's they sacrifice their world building to give the audience what they want, but at the same time, that I feel like that's what kills films like this. Because I remember the first Transformers felt like that when I saw
Yeah.
it, where it was just like, yes, this is kind of cheesy, it's over the top, but it's it's a fun watch. But then it just was like, oh, the audience really loves the destruction. Let's go all in on the monster fight, and it just notice how that's when the downward trajectory for all of these series starts is when they go all in on monster fights.
Yeah. Or Transformers case Transform robot fights.
Yeah,
Like going back to the original Transformers, my favorite scene in the original Transformers is when they bring on in all kind of your main characters into the base, the Section 7 base in the Hoover Dam, and have that whole scene of explaining like, yeah, she landed, blah blah, we found it here. It's been like the basis of all our technology, and then they take them into the room and they put the Samsung uh, phone into the case and they shoot it with the energon.
and the
Um,
phone transforms.
yeah, and they have that scene of just like it's the explanation of like what the government knows, and then you have the Sam Witwicky, the Shia LaBeouf character, explain like, okay, well here's what I know, and I know more than you, and then they have the whole back and forth. That whole scene in the Hoover Dam is one of the best scenes of the entire movie.
And it's exposition. Get that?
Yeah, 100%.
Like exposition.
It's just an information dump, but it works so well.
It's one of those things I find so shocking is how many people are like, exposition. It's just like, sometimes when it is done well, that's the difference between a good movie and a bad movie is the exposition.
Yeah,
Like And you can almost make the argument to go back to the movie you should never watch in its full entirety, the Snyder Cut. That's one of the differences, is not necessarily an exposition, but the narrative is more fleshed out and explained. Still a bad movie, but that's like, imagine if that had been in the original Justice League cut. If the storyline was more coherent, it would be a better movie. And it's just like, nope, we just need excuses to get things from A to B. We don't really care because no one in the audience cares. And you realize you're actually playing to the lowest common denominator, because the person who's going to be like, I was so bored during the human sequences, is still going to show up for the monster fight. The person who shows up and enjoys the monster fight but feels like there needs to be like a narrative driving it, moment you take that narrative away, they're not showing up for the one that's just pure monster fight. That's at least my argument on that. Like,
I'm totally with you.
The person who is going to hate those human moments, they're going to use those stupid little apps or websites that tell them when to go to the bathroom while in the theater and disappear during those sequences that help make the story make sense for everyone else. And then you could have a monster fight.
Yep. I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. So, Godzilla vs. Kong. Watch it with your friends, make fun of it, and rewatch Godzilla. Moving on to our bit of Marvel news. Black Widow was once again delayed, but we do have confirmation. It is coming out same day on Disney Plus as it is going into theaters using their premiere thing. So for $30, you can watch Black Widow at home. Feels like this was kind of inevitable, but at the same time, it's like Disney delayed it until the last absolute possible moment, to where the idea of seeing it in theaters is actually viable now. Whereas if it had been its original release date, and by original release date, I mean the one that they just moved of May, would have been asking for no one to go see it. Whereas July, given how vaccinations have gone out with, seems more, believable that a large audience could go see it. But they're still doing the Disney Plus thing. What is your take on that? Do you think this is going to be just kind of the norm now?
I think at least for now. I personally like it a lot. For me, like, buying Raya was probably a great decision for us because we can watch as many times as we want, watch it from home, have a good time with it, whatever. I think where it comes into a little bit of a difference is like, yeah, Raya, Black Widow, these are movies that I would want to see on a bigger screen and with a bunch of people, but, like, not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like, would Endgame have been Endgame if we didn't see it with a room full of people?
I think that's a fair question, because I know, especially
if Endgame was this Disney Plus premium model, would it have did as well? Would it be the cultural phenomenon that it was?
Because I also look at Force Awakens, just like the sense of community that would be within that, just for that 2-hour period. Like, there is something to be said about watching a movie with a group.
Yeah, I think it just
people
depends
you don't
on
know.
the movie. Yeah, I think it just depends on the movie, right? It depends on the experience that you're looking for. And, like, for Black Widow, I don't necessarily know how much of that you've gotten with Black Widow. Same thing goes for like something like Raya or like even Mulan, right? Which is the other one that we've seen.
Yeah, because the thing with like Raya, the way I look at from like your perspective, it's just like the $30 is still less than it would cost you to take your daughter to go see it. And now you're not bound to the schedule of the movie theater. You can watch it at whatever time is most convenient for you. And
over.
Yeah. Like, if I had children, God forbid, I would not, in a heart ever, if I could do something with like Disney Plus where I could just pay $30 and I would not take the kids to the theater ever.
Right.
Like, not from just financial reasons, just because I know as a theater goer, I enjoy seeing those movies, but there are times where parents, they need to take their kids. And by need, I mean, they want to treat their children. but they might have a younger child who could get scared, or might, they might be young enough where they're going to not be able to like stay up through the entire movie. But you have older children who you can't neglect because of that. And I know I experienced this working at the theater, and you definitely experienced this working at the theater, where we'd run into cases where some mothers and fathers were very cognizant of that fact, but they would leave the theater with their youngest child because they're just like, they're scared. Like, I remember once helping out someone with passes because they ended up not watching the movie at all because their kid was scared. And it's just like, and I was like, you know what? I'm giving you these passes not because you missed the movie, because you were polite to everyone else and took the kid who was scared and freaking out of the theater.
Right.
Like, good on you for thinking about everyone else in the theater. Imagine being that parent and just being like, you know what? I could just throw it on the TV.
Yeah.
I can't see Disney
it's super
not
useful.
Yeah, I can't see Disney not doing that with films like this anymore.
Yeah.
Especially like if you break it out into like Film Rent and their breakdowns for that, the kind of person who's going to pay for an IMAX ticket is probably going to still pay for the IMAX ticket. But everyone else, they're probably going to be making just as much money with the Disney Plus subscription and the premium purchase as they would if they went to see it in the theater.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good for the theater, but it's good for Disney.
Yeah.
James, I kind of want to mind your thought on this, because I know you and I keep talking about like the idea of getting a bigger TV. If you had the choice for for every movie coming out from here to the end of time between going to see it in the theater and watching it at home, would you watch it at home every time, or would you be very like super selective about what movie you see in the theater? Like, how would you play that out?
Yeah, I'd probably do more home watching. I'm not as in love with the theater experience as you are. I'm sort of like the movie's the movie. Like the where I see it doesn't matter all that much. But being said, going to the movies is sort of a fun thing to do with other people.
Yeah.
But if I was just going to go watch a movie by myself, I would prefer just watching it at home.
Well, the thing too is you can like with like Black Widow, there's nothing stopping us from say renting it or buying it through the premium whatever with Disney Plus and having people over. Like, you could still get like that similar sense, but you might not be doing it at the AMC. You'd just be doing it at home. Because like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm not sure because I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I have said that I think the first movie I'm going to see in theaters is Dune. And even though with vaccinations and everything and Black Widow getting pushed back, that might still be the case. Where I'm now starting to look at it from being someone who had an AMC A-list subscription, really enjoyed it, used the heck out of it. I'm now sitting here going, maybe I'm going to just only see like one or two movies a year in the theater, the ones that I feel like I have to see, whereas ones I do want to see day of, I might just pay for streaming. So I might just be like, hey, let's rent Black Widow. Because why not?
Sure.
No, but what's also interesting about this is Warner Brothers has already confirmed that their 2022 schedule, they're not going to do what they did this year. It's going to go back to theaters. They're not doing the same day release on HBO Max. So for them, it's clearly a temporary solution. I'm just wondering, I don't know how that's going to work with the consumer.
Yeah, you can't train your audience one way for a year and then say, no, we're going to go back to the way it was.
Right, especially when vaccinations and everything happening, the idea of going to see a movie in the fall is, tenable. But now if I can get it on HBO Max for a movie that comes out in August, September, you damn well have a good movie if I'm going to go pay for it and have an HBO Max subscription.
Yeah.
I think I can see that backfiring on them.
Yeah, I agree.
But This is something we'll have to see how it plays out. But finally, to the very end of things, we have episodes 2 and 3 of The Falcon and Winter Soldier. How much
I'm
did you
all
love
in
it,
on this
Chris?
show. I'm all in. I am in love with this show. The line that gets me every time that they show it, and I think they kind of know that it's the crux of the show, is the Bucky, if Steve is wrong about you, he's wrong about me line.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. I think it's great. I love them introducing Isaiah Bradley and Eli Bradley. They're clearly setting up for Young Avengers.
Yeah.
It's become painfully not even clear, but it's like painfully like obvious that they're setting up Young Avengers.
Yeah.
I tried to look up who the actor was that plays Eli. Obviously, you only see him open the door. And it wouldn't surprise me if like he gets recast if and when he does come in,
Yeah.
like officially. But
A
just
couple years
them,
older, you can recast it.
yeah, get a nice Michael B. Jordan looking fellow, to play Eli. I think if you casted too big of an actor to play that Eli role, then you're telegraphing a little too much because
Oh yeah, you'd be like being like, "Hey, look at this guy, big spotlight."
he just opens the door. Like what if it was a couple years ago and it was like, oh yeah, here's Michael B. Jordan opening the door.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm. But
No,
like think about
they're definitely pushing a Young Avengers thing.
because think about like Young Avengers, the last like 4 Marvel projects, right? Endgame, you have Cassie Lang, who becomes Stasher. WandaVision, you have Speed and Wiccan, as well as Photon. You have now Eli Bradley in here. You have Kate Bishop coming in the Hawkeye series. We have Ironheart, which is in the works, and we have Ms. Marvel, which is also in the works. So clearly, they're building to a Young Avengers series. I have no doubts here that that's the
I
direction.
loved the second episode.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so much in that episode that I was just like, "Holy crap, I'm all in on this series." The third episode, I felt dragged a little long,
So funny enough, Logan,
but
this is gonna keep coming up. The writer of the third uh, episode, do you know who it is?
is this one of those cases where at the moment you say it, I'm like, I should have caught this, but I didn't?
No, you're gonna laugh though when I tell you who it is. I want to look up his name so that I can give some credit here, but I can't seem to find it on hand. But oh, here it is. So yeah, okay, it is him. So he's an executive co-producer, but he also wrote this episode. You want me to tell you who it is?
Go for it.
Derek Kolstad, who wrote all 3 John Wick films.
I can't escape. The universe is chastising me at every moment today.
So yeah, it's pretty there's like a lot of John Wick elements here. The entire Sharon being a badass in the shipyard is John Wick.
Yeah,
There's
I really
a lot
like
of
those
John Wick in there.
sequences.
So if you like those sequences, that is just John Wick.
Okay, I think I need to watch John Wick.
Yeah. So yeah, the Sharon in the shipyard sequence is just John Wick. It's 100% what John Wick is. And so that element of it, I do like. The second episode I think was the strongest one of the group, but the third episode, the Uh, I love the Zemo stuff.
Yeah,
I love them playing with that character, and I think there's a lot to it. I think I laughed harder than anything when they're talking about the Troll Man soundtrack, and he goes, it's a masterpiece. It's complete. It fully encapsulates the experience
I
of
know,
an
and it's just
African
like
American. And
it's like
he's like
Zemo.
and he's like, hey, he's going past the line, but he's right. He's right. He's crossed the line, but he's right.
Zemo. Yeah, I do like how they're playing with Zemo. Again, my whole thing just it felt like it could have just been a little bit tighter. Kind of like how I pointed out with Game Changer, where I feel like Mandalorian did a great job of recognizing the fact that if the story
Cutting
can
the
be
fat,
told in
right?
30 minutes, it's going to be told in 30 minutes rather than
Yeah,
trying to pad it up for time. And I feel like that's something Game Changers didn't really take to heart, and something I think that Falcon and Winter Soldier could have embraced a little more is the idea that you don't have to be an hour long.
yeah,
To where it just was more like, as it was going, I'm like, okay, they could have just trimmed it,
sure,
slimmed it
that's fair.
down. It's not that it's bad, but just, it could have been a little tighter. Because runtimes in streaming are completely irrelevant. Like, embrace it. You don't have to go longer than an hour, which it seems like everyone wants to do. Like, you can go shorter. Embrace it. Would have been my one note. Otherwise, like, I thought it was fine. Like, that's the thing is like, it was okay. It's fine. But yeah, that second episode, holy crap. I was like on board from beginning to end with that second episode. And because I remember first seeing like the new Cap at the beginning of the first episode, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be like the antagonist. And then you start out with him, and then you're like, okay, I can't hate this guy now. Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Obviously, like me and Jenny were talking about it of like you don't want to like him, but you understand that he's being an asshole because Bucky and Sam are being
Yeah,
assholes.
you can't hate him.
It's
Like you
yeah,
can't blame him either. You don't have to like him, but you can't really blame him for acting the way he does and being
yeah,
frustrated with, you know, Bucky and Sam.
yeah. So I think it's again both sides are being assholes,
Yeah.
and like it's hard when that
And I
happens.
think they were smart having him be the beginning of that second episode.
Yeah,
Like, because it immediately took you as the audience where you're already prepared to hate the guy. Because clearly he's going to be the bad guy, right? And then you're just like shown his reality and who he is very quickly, very efficiently. And then you're immediately just like, well, I'm rooting for Sam and Bucky because I know that in the end they're going to be, right. But at the same time, I don't hate this guy. In fact, if anything, I feel like there could have been, if there was one thing I would have changed with this last episode, is it seemed like they kind of dropped him and forgot him entirely, and then kind of like, oh yeah, he's here for the third one.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I think that second episode was just like absolutely perfect and what it needed to be.
yep,
So yeah, I'm definitely enjoying Falcon and Winter Soldier.
yeah. It's really good.
Also, I'm wondering if you're on the same thing with me, where you feel like the what is it, the flag, whatever the what's that group?
Flag Smashers.
Flag Smashers, yeah. Like, do you feel more and more like they are misguided rather than the villain?
Well, so that's where I thought they were headed. We're like, oh, these people aren't bad. They're just like doing the wrong thing here. The part where it skews for me is where she blows them up
Yeah.
and she goes, and the guy's surprised, like, we don't kill people. And she's like, we have to or whatever, and you're like, oh well, okay, she's just evil.
Yeah, she's Saw Gerrera.
Yeah,
Really. To mix our, universes, that's a very Saw Gerrera perspective.
yeah. So I think she's evil. So whatever.
Yeah, I think she's going to be the bad guy, but the group itself may not actually be
Yeah, they're gonna like turn on
evil.
her or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. Like, I'm interested to see how that one plays out.
yeah.
Because they
Also, do you hear
definitely have
the?
tried to make them more sympathetic than I thought they would have in the
Do
beginning.
you hear the? Do you see the? Have you seen the fan theories about Sharon being the power broker?
No, but given how things ended in that episode, I had a feeling she's either working with the power broker or is still working for the US government. But the idea that she is the power broker, sure.
Yeah. Also, I do want to bring up that them going to Madripoor is I flipped out.
The moment they went
I
there, I'm like, I think Chris is having a happy day.
Yeah, rock hard, baby. The Yeah, it was pretty intense, and then I had to pause and explain to my dad and to Jenny like what Madripoor is, and I was like, this is the first steps to Wolverine. I was like, this is the
Yep.
first steps. This is we're going to X-Men.
I remember it was seen after this, like before the episode. Before I watched the episode, I saw some things online where a bunch of people are like, X-Men! I
Yeah.
was like,
So
what?
yeah, I was
Okay.
like, yes. The Madripoor stuff is awesome, and so I remember too. I heard like, people online being cynical of like, hey man, just because they're going to Madripoor doesn't mean anything. I was like, dude, they teased Wakanda in Age of Ultron, fucking 10 years before we
Yeah.
saw Wakanda.
Oh, yeah, because Age of Ultron is what? 2014?
2014, 15, something like that. And
So
then we
5 years
didn't get
before Black Panther.
yeah. So it is a big deal that they teased it, and it is a big deal that they went there. And a big deal that it is kind of becoming a very big important part of the show. So
Yeah, I mean, hints to X-Men, it's going to happen. The question has been, and we've talked about this, the question isn't if it will happen, it's how they do it.
yeah.
It's like, how are they going to introduce this concept of mutants? Is it going to be something where they try to retcon it, where they were always there, or is it going to be something that gets introduced today?
Weapon
Yeah. Which is just like our whole thing of where, like, how do you, like, because we've had this whole conversation, like, how do you do Magneto if it happens now?
Yeah. So we'll see.
So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode. It's more what I expected the Marvel series to be like than with WandaVision, which I know is something you, as you said, was like, this was supposed to be first. So that's probably why it functions this way. But I also like the fact, as much as it functions like more akin to what I expected, that they've been willing to dig deeper. Like Sam and his sister dealing with the bank. Like, that's the kind of thing I felt like Marvel had been lacking, and it's not, admittedly, not something you could have really done in the films, but it definitely was something that they could have done more of, where I would say like something like Star Wars would have had an advantage in that it had all this multimedia and MCU hasn't. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Cool. Yeah, super fair.
Yeah, that does it for me. Anything else for you?
No, I'm good.
All right, I say that we call it. Please like, share, subscribe, do all those fun things you're supposed to do. Details in the comments or something like that. If you have any questions or feedback, you can always email us at feedback@quality3.net. And otherwise, stay safe. Yes, you still should wear a mask. Get your shots. and we will see you in 2 weeks.